what's your response to the developments in the Middle East?
You know, what's happening in the Middle East, Israel, Gaza, to say the obvious, is very serious. It's going to evoke a lot of emotions across the world. In fact, it has evoked a lot of emotions across the world. And it will have an impact in this region too, Singapore, Southeast Asia. There are deep divides in how people are reacting. And as the conflict unfolds, these divides are inevitably going to become deeper. There is also, if you look at the divide, the significant divide in this region, other places, is often along racial and religious lines. And the two sides hold their respective views deeply, passionately. Our position on Israel-Palestine and our support for the two-state solution is well known. It has been stated repeatedly. My remarks on the current situation are directed primarily at the security issues relating to Singapore. And I'll make 2 points in that context. One, in no circumstances can we accept any kind of terrorist attack. Hamas's attack on Israel, attacking and massacring civilians, is a massive terrorist attack. The kidnapping and unjustified murder of children, acts of cruelty, are shocking, horrifying, and this extreme violence must be condemned in clear, unequivocal terms. You know, it is possible to hold very strong views on what is happening in the region. It is possible to deplore how the Palestinians have been treated over the years. It is possible to deeply sympathize with the plight of the Palestinians and yet still unequivocally condemn the terrorist attacks carried out in Israel. These atrocities cannot be justified by any rationale whatsoever, whether of fundamental problems or historical grievances. The second point I'll make, there is going to be a very severe reaction. Israel is going to react with its full might. We need to be clear about our stance. We condemn all acts of terrorism and wanton violence. But we must not let these events happening externally affect the internal situation within Singapore. We must, in Singapore, maintain our racial and religious peace. We have to stay vigilant. Terrorist groups will exploit such conflicts. They have already issued calls for followers to join in a wider jihad against Israel. There have also been reports of anti-Semitic attacks, incidents overseas. Our position has been made very clear over the years. We act against anyone who promotes or espouses extremism and violence. We have detained Singaporeans under the Internal Security Act because they fell for the pro-Hamas narrative and wanted to fight. One was detained in March 2021. He wanted to travel to Gaza to fight alongside Hamas. He also planned a knife attack against Jews at a synagogue in Singapore. A second person was detained in November of last year. He had also made plans to travel to Gaza to fight with Hamas after watching videos online. But, we have also detained individuals who intended to attack Muslim targets in Singapore. For example, a boy was detained in December 2020. He had made plans to conduct knife attacks against Muslims in 2 mosques in Singapore. He was influenced by the Christchurch attack. So far, we have managed to avoid letting international events like these destabilize us within Singapore. This is going to be quite a tough period, but our fundamental attitude cannot change. We are all Singaporeans. We have a precious peace within Singapore. We must never let external events affect that.
Are there any security measures like increased patrols being stepped up at sensitive places like mosques and synagogues here?
Our security agencies are watching the situation closely. And for operational reasons, I cannot tell you the exact plans, but additional measures have been taken. There will be stepped up patrols at some events and places. Emergency forces are always on alert to respond to incidents. Places which are possible targets have had their security reassessed. And for places at a higher risk, we are increasing security. And ICA has also stepped up measures. I think this is a period everyone has to be more alert and careful. That's because Singapore is an attractive target.
Will the situation in Israel actually impact our social cohesion, the region, and religious harmony in Singapore? What are we doing about it? And also, could you also comment on how Israel should actually respond to the incident?
I think this is something, talking about racial cohesion, we have to be very careful about. We have seen how various issues have polarized societies, caused divisions, created suspicions. And as I mentioned earlier, the suffering of innocent civilians caught in the conflict is a very emotive one. But in terms of our own religious harmony and understanding, we are in a fairly good position. We have open and frank conversations. There is a lot of mutual respect and trust between religious and racial groups. And Singaporeans strongly value our racial and religious diversity and harmony. This is something that many maybe take for granted, but I'll refer to a Pew commentary that came out published last week. It pointed out the high levels of interreligious tolerance and acceptance in Singapore based on a 2022 survey. For example, many world religions have a significant presence in Singapore. Pew pointed out in 2014 that we are the most religiously diverse place in the world. The 2022 Pew survey found in most other South and Southeast Asian countries, people say that belonging to their country's majority religion is very important for national identity. For example, being Buddhist in Thailand or Cambodia, or being Muslim in Indonesia or Malaysia. But in Singapore, about 9 in 10, 90%, said that various religions, Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, Chinese traditional religions, were all compatible with Singapore culture and values. And a majority of Singaporean adults who said they are religious are very tolerant of other perspectives. For example, most say that many religions can be true, and 60% said they have a personal connection to religions other than their own. It's not something you see in many other countries. And most Singaporeans say that Singapore's religious, ethnic, cultural diversity is a good thing for the country and makes Singapore better. This is really quite remarkable. Our religious leaders, our people, are very different compared with many other countries. And it's due to a combination of factors. Legal framework we have, government policies, our religious and community leaders understanding what is important for Singapore, working together. So what we have built over the years and what we now have is precious and extremely remarkable. And we must do our best to protect it. You also asked me how I thought Israel should respond. We don't control Israel's response. But I think it's fair to say that any response has to be consistent with international law and with international rules of war. And you can see several countries have made that point.